And we're live.
All right. What's going on, everybody?
Welcome to Two Old Pucks Hockey
Yeah,
Chat. I'm one
episode
old
two.
puck. I'm
Yeah,
one of the old pucks.
I'm the other old puck. So I forgot, we really didn't introduce ourselves, give a little background the last time around. So allow me to go first since it's my idea.
Go
So
for
I'm
it.
Scott. I grew up in Pennsylvania, a couple minutes outside of Hershey. Started playing hockey when I was 6. Have lived, breathed, eaten, slept hockey all my life. 40 now, live in Virginia Beach. Still, every now and again, lace up the skates and head out. Big Penguins fan. For a while, I did some reporting on the local AHL team, the Norfolk Admirals. So I got to cover actually a championship year. So I did that for probably a good 10 years. So yeah, just love to talk the sport and hopefully, get something out there that you guys find interesting, and maybe even get Chris to figure some stuff out. So over to you, sir.
I'm none of those things. I am the antithesis of that. I am the guy that jumped up and down in front of the TV, growing up watching the Islanders, going through life only rooting for the Islanders. Currently 48 years old, born and raised on Long Island, and still rooting for the Islanders. So I think not only enjoying hockey, but enjoying fantasy hockey, and the last 10, 15 years, definitely growing an appreciation for all of hockey. You go through when you're younger, you tend to have that blind banner waving, rah, rah, rah type of mentality where you have those blinders on, you root for your team and see nothing else, you know? And I'm definitely in the last bunch of years become more a student of the sport, trying to learn wherever I can, appreciating everything that I learn, and appreciating the knowledge that people are willing to share with me regarding hockey. So it's tough to find sources like that, people who speak from experience. So that's why I feel lucky to tap into your skills and your background. But I think there's just way too many of those rah rah sort of fan clubs and forums out there, and it's tough to find people who think objectively and can apply some more factual information into their discussions. So, yeah, that's where we're at.
Yeah, and really, I definitely don't want to make this all statistics, numbers, those types of things. It's supposed to be fun, supposed to be fun. So definitely don't want to get too far down in the weeds. But just sharing some insight had with talking with players, just watching the game, and yeah, just again, there's nothing wrong with that rah rah. Like, let's do that too. So
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, though, let's not say that statistics aren't fun. You
that's
know,
true too. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
I think there's a lot that you can discover, and in the numbers that makes you want to dig even deeper. And then there's some fun in that where you're like, "Holy cow! I never recognized that. I never thought of that." So I think putting in the work is what might discourage some people, but I think the results and what you're able to extract from that work is well worth it. It's a lot of fun what you find
yeah.
out.
Well, I mean, let's talk a little fantasy. Let's take a minute just to talk about a
Okay.
little fantasy, right? Because for anybody that's new to the sport, one of the best ways to really get into any professional sport is fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it forces you to pay attention to games and stats and players that you normally wouldn't ever pay attention to. So I encourage anybody who's just new coming to the sport. Really wanting to kind of immerse themselves right away is get into fantasy, and there's plenty of free leagues out there. There's plenty of opportunities to just do it and get in, and it's a lot of fun, and you can really, like I said, immerse yourself, really get to know some players, you get to know the teams, you get to know trends, and it's fun to watch.
You got to excuse me because I made the mistake of throwing in a a honeysucker before we started this broadcast, so almost
Yeah.
done with that. But just to remind everyone, who's, just to remind everybody who's watching, today is November 6th. As we're talking, I'm currently eyeballing the scores that are flashing. The Rangers and the Red Wings in the second period, just 2 minutes ago, right when we started this broadcast, it was 0-0, and now the Rangers are up 2-0 on a power play with 11:55 remaining in the second. And we have St. Louis going for their sixth straight, playing against Edmonton, and they're at the end of the first, tied at one apiece. So that's something maybe we should touch on. Is it might be a good segue. One of the topics is St. Louis. Five straight. Now this could be their sixth. Interesting team. It's funny how the discussion right before they go on a little streak is, oh my God, we lost Tarasenko. He's out for 6 months. Oh my God. And then they go on a streak. It's funny. The same thing we can touch on, and we'll touch on the Islanders, I'm sure, in a little bit. But same thing. You got Eberle goes out, Martin goes out. A few starters go out, and everyone's like, oh God. And then they go on a 10-game streak, But, Scotty, I mean, what is it that, is there something, is it that the younger guys, when they have the opportunity, they're so hungry that they fire up the rest of the roster on the ice? Or is it that these two teams, the Blues and the Islanders, on these streaks that they have just gotten a little lucky in finding some chemistry with some lines? What do you feel from experience that these teams are tapping into?
Sure. Well, I mean, St. Louis and the Islanders are perfect examples of blue collar teams, right? You don't have a lot of big names. You have guys who are putting up points. You have guys that are, leading the team. But St. Louis, you have to remember, halfway through the season last year, we're like last place, right? I mean, they were at the bottom. So they made a goaltending change with Binnington. But again, they worked hard to climb out, and they won the Stanley Cup. And it was with hard work. Mm-hmm. It was with a lot of blood and sweat. And so when you have guys that go down, you have those stars that go down. It's there. There's a lot of talk about the next man up attitude, and players really live that. So you'll have players on the team who actually take it personally and want to shoulder the burden. They want to put the team on their back and go. And that's contagious. So again, blue collar teams, Carolina Hurricanes, another blue collar team that engaged with their fans, really carried the fans along through the season into the postseason. Not a lot of big names, but they know how to win. They know and trust in the system, and a lot of times that's all they have to do is they have to fall back into a system, play the way the coach wants them to play, trust in it, get some really good goaltending, and take advantage of the opportunities when they present themselves. And in St. Louis's case, that's really been what they've done. I mean, last night I think the game ended in like a 3-0 breakaway against in overtime. Mm-hmm. And so they're playing, they're pouncing, they're counterattacking. And the Islanders, again, another team with a system that's been proven to work. They play off of defense, right? And that's Barry Trotz's system. Defense first, be responsible, but then take advantage of the opportunities that you have. And that's really what it boils down to. I mean, those guys play for each other. They take it personally when they're not carrying the load. They will put teams, there are guys that will put the team on their back and drag them through and weather the storm. And they take pride in that. So every win that they get is just it's more confidence boost.
As we're talking, I just put the graphic up on the screen as far as some stats, courtesy of the NHL website, and that the fact the Rangers are now up 3-1. So in the last 2 minutes, another 2 goals have been scored. So we've had 4 goals in the first 10 minutes of the second period. Crazy. Here's the thing. When in the case of the Islanders, and you could say that there's a chemistry that's there because of the coaching and the style, and because last year they had the lowest goals against average, right? So, but that may not be the case with the Blues. So I heard what you said, but I guess I'm trying to wrap my head around it. I mean, what is a coach? I guess let's go into this. What is a coach going to do when the healthy players come back? And I think it's a little bit more. There's more scratches currently on the Islanders than the Blues roster. So, Tarasenko comes back. That's an easy. Okay, it's Tarasenko. Let's get this guy back. I mean, Eberle, you could say that also, but you have Kuhnhackl and Martin and so on. I mean, you can make an argument for Kuhnhackl and Martin, and I'm not a fan of those guys. I like those guys, but when you look at Bardreau and you look at what Dobson's doing and Wallstrom, I mean, Letty's out currently also for a little short term. He should be back shortly though, but Dobson, I mean, he looked okay last night. There was a couple misreads when they were handling the puck in their own zone, trying to clear behind the net. That led to one of the shorthanded goals that that was the only goal that Ottawa had last night. I believe it was Pajot had on the shorthanded. Little misread, little miscommunication between Dobson and might have been Boychuk. And but other than that, he looked pretty nice. You look at the way Wallstrom plays. I mean, there were flashes of him. It looks like you're not sure if you're looking at Barzal or him. It's almost like Wallstrom is heavily influenced by the style in which Barzal plays. He wants to have the puck. He's moving around, trying to draw the defenders, then dishing off. He looks really good, really great skater. And then you have Bardreau, who this guy has no fear at all. There's no switch in this guy's head that says going to this part of the ice, I might get hurt. He actually wants to blow a hole right through that part of the ice. There's no such thing as dirty ice when Bardreau's playing. It's almost like he just wants to go through everybody and doesn't care. He's just a strong mental player, and I'm thoroughly impressed with that guy. I was thoroughly impressed with the very first couple games I saw him. I was like, wow, look at this guy. But I think I got away from our point a little bit. But what are the coaches going to do when the healthy players come back?
So Pittsburgh's a perfect example. Pittsburgh has had a healthy roster for all of 2 periods the entire regular season. Malkin just came back. There was a lot of discussion if he was going to play the right way. You just had a bunch of guys go down. You get some guys back, but now like Chris Letang, one of the best defensemen in the league, he went down with what appears to be a groin injury. Well, how do you fill in? Well, again, coaches have to make decisions based on the roster that they have, and a gluttony of depth is a good position to be in. That's why your GM has to make sure that there are players available to be called up and go back down that aren't subject to waivers. There's always emergency recalls, which you never hope to get into that position. But at the end of the day, some folks are going to sit. So in Pittsburgh's case, when everybody came back healthy, Dominic Cahoon, a player that Pittsburgh traded for from Chicago, who lit up the score sheet last year in Chicago, he was a healthy scratch. And he had just come off a really good game. So, coaches they sit down, they have to make the decisions that are best for the team. And, you take a look at, so what is the value of that player, right? So we talk about how brawlers they're just not part of the league anymore. There's really no place, because if you're a one-dimensional player, you're not going to have a spot. You need to be able to do more than just fight. So you have some players who are penalty kill specialists. So they may only get 2 or 3 minutes of regular ice time, 5-on-5, but they may be out for every penalty kill.
Yeah.
And so you take a look at a player who's skilled, that may be a third line player that can't do anything for you on the penalty kill. And you have another guy that you're making a roster decision. You're looking, okay, we know we've been having a lot of penalty problems lately, or our penalty kill stinks. We need to do something, so we're going to insert this other player. You may be trying to target a power play. Maybe you want to put 7 defensemen on the bench because you have one who's really good offensively, but not defensively sound, but you want that guy on the power play. So, you make decisions like that. So you may dress 11 forwards, 7 defensemen, right? Like it all depends on what the coach is looking for. But kind of getting back to your other point too about, players go down, how are they doing things? So coaches really don't coach in the offensive zone. Most coaches will say, I own you from the red line back to the goal, to our own goal. Once you get up beyond the red line, they may say dump the puck in and chase it, battle hard down low, but they don't put leashes on players and say, you're going to go to the front of the net now. You're going to go behind the net now. You're going to go to this position, that position. In kids hockey, you kind of have to coach them that way. Like, you section the ice off. This is where you go. This is kind of what, but no, when it gets to these professional players, they know how to score goals, right? Coaches don't have to teach them or show them how to score goals. Offensive-minded players are going to go to where they need to go. Now, when the puck is in the hands of the other team, that's when coaches will really draw up and say, this is the defensive strategy that I expect you to play. So whether it's an umbrella, whether they're going to play like a lock, if they're going to have a wing that supports high, or a wing that comes down low into the corners to support the defenseman, right? Like, the coaches really go there. But when it comes to playing offense, coaches really don't drive that. So when you have this guy like Cole Bardreau, who I think he's a rookie, but he's like 25 or something like that.
Yeah. He's battled some injuries. He's been in the minors. He played like a ton of games in the minors just because he's battling injuries. But he's really thriving right now.
So the thing with a guy like that, who's a rookie, who's getting his opportunity, is sometimes the coaches have to throttle that back in, right? You have to play within the system. You have to play with some control, but they really aren't going to put the leash on guys like that, provided they're playing responsibly. And so, when players go down, you have guys that come up and they know they have to take advantage of the opportunity, and they're really going to push. Some guys are going to overachieve. Some guys, that first game in, they're going to play with adrenaline and it's going to wear off. But it's a good problem to have for coaches when they have healthy players come back to decide whether or not they're going to make those returning players earn their ice time, if they're going to keep people. And it's really a good opportunity to show off and let the organization know what they have in the minors, if that's where they get sent. So
yeah,
but
yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. I was listening to the NHL Network the other day, and obviously they touch on the fact that everybody's like, coaches, players in hockey. There's a lot of superstitions, right? So just as much with the coaches as with the players. So you have a guy come back. Who the heck in their right mind would want to screw with the secret sauce that's making the Islanders win 10 in a row? Eberle comes back tomorrow, right? Eberle comes back. Well, he's not coming back. But I'm saying if he were to come back tomorrow, what would you touch? What would you touch? I like Eberle a lot, but I don't even know. Like, what the heck would I touch? Maybe, I don't know. I mean, listen. I think when you look at the guys, like the strong guys like Johnson and Bardreau, who are two guys that I am so happy to see on the ice for the Islanders, who are not afraid to mix it up with anybody at any time. I mean, I feel like this is one of the stronger muscle teams that we've had in a while, in a long time. I think in the past, we've always had maybe one or two. You can go back to Rich Pilon or Kasperitis or whomever it might be. But that was just like one guy. There was nobody who really had a presence or people avoided. We got Johnson now. We got, we got some big defenders too. I mean, Mayfield's not afraid to mix it up. We got, Bardreau too. And then you look, and I feel I'm a little scared because you look at the way Wahlstrom plays. Wahlstrom is throwing his body into every check. His forechecks, his back checks. He's just throwing himself into everybody. He doesn't care who he's hitting. And he's getting some retaliation, people coming after him. Like, other players are retaliating on Wahlstrom. So I'm thinking, like, this guy's got to kind of put a filter on somewhere. But he's playing with no fear. So I love seeing the style. I love seeing that element. And I think that element in itself creates a new chemistry and balance to not just I don't know, not just like a talented lines after lines. It's just a good way of mixing up an attack and mixing up and getting in the minds of the opponents.
Let's kind of wrap this up by saying you're not paying millions of dollars to a player to sit on the bench or to be a scratch.
Right.
These rookies, these guys that are on their entry-level contracts,
Right.
they have a place to go. They can
Yeah.
go down and play. They can get even bigger minutes, better minutes, develop. But you're not paying guys to be a healthy scratch. You're not putting millions of dollars in their pockets. So they're going to play. You expect them to play at a high level. The coaches certainly have to be mindful of their lines and look at what's worked. But the expectation is when that player comes back that they are going to adapt and absorb that winning culture, that whatever that sauce was, that they're going to play that way. Because if they don't, they should know, and the coach should tell them, I have an option to replace you,
Yeah.
and not be afraid to do it. So
Yeah.
that's really what that boils down to. So you mentioned the Islanders, that 10-game streak, and I think that's what they're tied for their franchise record.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the all-time record is 15.
So
But this is
yeah. So let's continue to talk about streaks. We talked about St. Louis. We talked about the Islanders. So the Bruins. So the Bruins lost yesterday. They were winning. I think they had won 6 games in a row, six game streak. They played the Canadiens, and the Canadiens. Boston had played the night before. It was their 3rd game in 4 nights. Canadians were well rested. But it was Boston has what's called the best line in hockey. Those guys are crazy. That first line of Boston, and Montreal was able to snap that streak. So, and it came from defensemen, right? And so you're getting goals from the back end. There was a good challenge by Claude Julien to get a goal waved off that had the Bruins up 5-4. So they were able to get that erased, and it was a good win for Boston and. For Montreal to snap that streak with Montreal picking up that 5th goal and winning it 5-4.
Yeah, one thing to touch on, I don't know if you were aware or how many people were aware, but in that game, it was one of the classiest things that we could have probably seen all season, which was the fact that Zdeno Chara got a standing ovation in Montreal from the Montreal crowd for his 1500th game.
Yes.
So extremely classy move on behalf of the Montreal fan base. Something you would absolutely not expect to see from an arch rival like Montreal. Treating a Boston player, but it was once again kudos to that fan base. Very classy move and well deserved, obviously, on Chara's part.
Yeah, and. Chara, I think he's got to be close to retirement. I watched him play against Pittsburgh on Monday night when Pittsburgh was able to come back, take the lead 4-3, and then give up 2 goals for Boston to win 5-4. The game-winning goal. Brad Marchand, the player everybody loves to hate, but between David Pastrnak, who's 30 points, 15 goals, 15 assists. Brad Marchand, 10 goals, 18 assists. These 2 guys are leading the NHL in points, right? I mean, that's incredible. And these 2 guys play on that first line. So, Boston's they're a good team, and they have proven that they can take a lead and hold on to it. They've proven that they can come back, and that's a testament to that lineup. I think that they really have to win now, because I think some of those guys are going to outgrow their contracts. I think some of them are a little older. They're gonna end up moving on. But again, Boston's going to be at the top of the league for, I'm going to say, pretty much the entire season. Yeah. So.
It's funny with the goalkeeping too. I mean, Halak has always been since he moved away from the Islanders, he was doing a very, very strong, and Rask has traditionally always been very weak in the first half of the season. So they're only going to get better because Rask only gets better, and Halak has always seemed to be pretty steady. He was doing extremely well for that team. He did extremely well for the team last year, and he's doing well again this year. But Rask, like I said, for some reason, Rask just cannot get a good start to any NHL season. I just never seen him get off to a hot start. It always takes him a good third of the season before he starts playing really solid hockey.
Yeah, it's funny, Halak, when he gave up the fourth goal against, he broke his stick over the crossbar, threw a temper tantrum. It was pretty funny. It was pretty funny to watch.
Yeah.
But he hung in there, and he ended up with the win. So
Yeah.
I think it's a good tandem. Rask certainly has been ridden pretty hard over the past couple seasons. So if Halak can stay strong, again, I think Boston's got talent in all three areas: offense,
Right.
defense, and goaltending. And I think that they're going to be a team to that's going to ride high in the league.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. I was looking at and I'm sure you're a little bit more familiar on it. We don't have to spend much time on it, but we have the Global Series. And I know the NHL network was spending a bit of time talking about how excited some of the players were from Buffalo and from Tampa Bay and going to Sweden. Um, Tell me a little bit about the history of this and how this originated, and why is it something that needs to be done right now?
So, funny thing with the what they're calling the Global Series, and the idea is there's a couple different ways of looking at this, and it all depends on who you talk to. So, um, they're really trying to get, as most sports are, the NFL is they're looking to possibly put a team in London. The NHL is really trying to get a hold in Europe, and of course you've got professional hockey leagues in Europe. You've got professional hockey leagues in Russia. I mean, they've got them all over the place, but it's really designed to try and expand the game. It's goodwill. It goes into those areas. Now, what's interesting to me, and again, this is something that upsets me, is that the NHL and Gary Bettman in particular, for the speaking on behalf of the GMs, he doesn't want the NHL players to play in the Olympics.
Right.
We're sending players over to Europe. We're playing European teams, but yet they're not going to be allowed to participate in the Olympics. And so, I kind of see that as an issue. If you want to grow the game, you put the best players in the world on the ice. That's how you grow the game. So to me, I mean, I understand that, it's really trying to corner the market. It's trying to grow the market. It's trying to get fans overseas to get in, kind of embrace the game. I think it's a little bit of a feeling out to see if there can be competition, say like with the KHL or with any of the other European leagues. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's fun for the fans that are there, especially for fans that come out that have never really watched the game. Watching NHL players come over there, it's a great bonding experience for the NHL teams that go there. Road trips always are. The best thing for a losing record at home is to send a team on the road. When you get them on a road trip, they're on the plane, they're on the bus, they're doing stuff together, they're away from home and all those distractions. It's a really good opportunity for them to bond. So that's really what it's about. It's the same reason why the NFL goes to London, goes to Mexico. It's the same reason the NBA plays overseas as well. It's really trying to grow the game, grow fans, and make money. I mean, let's be honest. That's what that boils down to as well.
Right. What? Let me ask you a question. Why is the timing right now in the middle of the season?
It's scheduling. It's really scheduling.
I no, I get it. I mean, I'm just saying, I've never seen something other than the Olympics interrupt an NHL season like this. And this is this as necessary as something like the Olympics? That's what I'm saying. Like you look at world championships and so on that happen in the off season, right? Why is this
So
happening during the season?
so in this case, again, it's scheduling. So the all the club teams in Europe, they're on a break, so it doesn't impact their season. So you're basically, they're sending a couple NHL teams, so it's not really a break in the NHL season because it's NHL teams that are going to play, right? But it's not interfering with the competitive or the competitor, which would be a European team. So fans don't have to miss their local teams to watch the NHL go and play. So, I mean,
I got it. I don't know if I agree with the whole thing. I think it's nice that you want to grow the sport. I'm a little, on the fence with the timing of it. If I were to prioritize an effort like this being made, it sounds like everything's great. And I haven't been following this effort within the NHL to help promote this global series and sending teams. I haven't been following it. So, I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
I mean, so again, it's Sabres and Tampa Bay, right?
Yeah.
Are going. The Sabres, I mean, they're landing in Stockholm, right? Buffalo has 5 Swedish-born players on the roster. The Tampa Bay Lightning have Victor Hedman. So, it's a chance for them to go and play on a national stage. It's a chance for fans to see homegrown talent or people from their home country play on that national level. But you're still playing those games. I mean, it's not like the NHL season is taking a break for these teams. It's just they're playing in a different rink. So, but yeah, it boils down to money, market share, trying to grow the game, be good ambassadors. You name it, it's there. My thing is, if you can afford to do that, I think there's going to be, not to really get down into the weeds on this, but I think there's going to be another lockout. I think the CBA is, when it comes around, and I think one of the sticking points is going to be the Olympics.
Yeah.
We're obviously not there yet, but I think that's going to happen, especially if the league is willing to send players all over the world to play during the season. There shouldn't be an issue with taking a break. I mean, I see both sides, but the players want to play, and as a fan, you want the best players in the league on the ice playing against each other.
Yeah. All right. I think that's enough on that one. I don't want to spend too much time on that one.
Well, it's we're kind of talking, a little bit outside the norm of the NHL, and I think that provides a good opportunity to really talk about professional women's hockey.
Yes.
The earlier this year, the Canadian Women's Hockey League had been functional for 12 seasons, had 6 teams in it. They folded. And so that left only the National Women's Hockey League. It is the only professional league in North America. But then just a couple weeks later, pretty much every professional female hockey player in North America and Europe just basically said they're not going to play. And they want to be paid. Something that wasn't happening. They were basically getting a stipend, but it wasn't an actual paycheck.
Right.
It's kind of along the same lines as soccer.
Right.
But they want paid. They want health insurance, maternity leave, those types of things, and so it's interesting to me, the hockey or the soccer team as well as the hockey team, right? And so when it comes to professional sports, butts in seats really is what drives
the business.
And so if you're not putting butts in seats, you're not going to get sponsors. You're not going to, the wages just aren't going to be there. So it's an interesting perspective. So the NHL has kept its hands out of it. The NHL actually kicked in money to pay. In the National Women's Hockey League, they throw in $100,000 every year, and the NHL also paid USA Hockey $25,000 per player, which in order to give the National Women's Hockey League that salary that the players were looking for. So the National Women's Hockey League did pay a small salary. The NHL bumped that up in their efforts to support the National Women's Hockey League.
Right.
But the two are they're not the same
completely
organization.
Different, yeah.
So the NHL has kind of put some things together in a hypothetical like a framework. Professional women's players are not adverse to having a league that's run by the NHL. They think that's going to happen, but nobody knows what's going to be there.
Do we have a sense of what you touched on as far as putting butts in seats, what the average attendance is for one of these women's games?
No. And you know what? And I'll be honest with you. Apart from the Olympics, I've never actually seen a professional women's hockey game. It's right. I enjoy watching the women play. Right. I think they play with more emotion on their sleeve. Right. They're definitely skilled. They'd kick the crap out of me, certainly. But it's just not something that's interesting to me. And 82 games a season for one team, and then if you're watching 40 games a week, there's only, I think, at some point you can get saturated, and you're really looking to watch the best game in the world, and right now that's the NHL.
Yeah.
So the other thing that'll be interesting too, and the last point I'll make here, is that the plan likely would be, if the NHL does put a league together, is they would put women's teams in cities that have NHL teams, so they could use the same facilities.
Well,
so
that makes the most sense, yeah.
Well, it makes the most sense from a cost savings perspective. Certainly, you could leverage maybe the advertising and things like that. But again, cities that have multiple teams that are play in the same league or play the same sport, you could be oversaturated. And so it'll be interesting to see how they balance that out. Is there going to be, people are paying $1,000 or whatever for season tickets to an NHL team? Are they going to have money left over to pay for tickets to season tickets to a women's league? So it'll just be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So.
Would the same people go to with the person who goes to watch an NHL game be willing to go watch a women's game?
Yes.
Like, so that you feel it would be the same fan base?
Yes. And I think that it's, so you'll have two types that are there, and you'll have the people that are out looking for just a fun night out, who may not have, watched hockey, but they can go to see a women's game for $15 a seat, as opposed to having to pay $45 a seat for an NHL team. And then you'll have diehard fans who just live, eat, breathe, sleep hockey, and want to go see that. Right. So again, it'll take a few years for, I think, the roots to really grow in those areas. But the WNBA is a perfect example. I mean, that league has been around for a while. There are fans that go to see the WNBA, and I think you'll have fans that go to see women's hockey.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I think it's, it kind of reminds me a little bit of tennis, because maybe 20 years ago, when you would watch men's tennis and you would watch women's tennis, there was vast differences in just watching the sport. Men's tennis was faster. Guys are hitting the ball harder. Women's tennis, balls are slower. The women are slower. And with all due credit to female tennis players, everyone started working harder, training harder. And obviously the technology in the sport and the rackets, training techniques, diets, so on, everything became more of a science. And now the women are playing just as hard as the men. And it's not reflected in the duration of the matches, unfortunately. I mean, I think Women are out there training and they'll play, 10 sets of tennis, but in a pro match, it's limited to 2 out of 3, but the men are playing 3 out of 5. But you watch the matches, and if you were to watch a women's match today, women are crushing the ball, crushing the ball. So, yeah, I think people who were tennis fans would naturally lean toward watching a men's match over a women's match years back because there was a visual difference. And now you see, I think you see just as many people, that same fan today is willing to stay and watch a women's match just as much as a men's match. And I think that carries over to hockey. You look at the speed of the sport and you look how fast the women are. It's great to see. I think there's obviously still a little bit of a difference, a big difference, but I think the gap has shrunk dramatically. And I think with all due credit to women working hard and making the sport that much more exciting for everyone.
Well, it's interesting too, and it's probably the same way in tennis. It's availability, and for a long time, it wasn't available to girls,
Right.
and now it is. Now there are
Right.
there are
Right.
investments in teams for girls, like kids, in
Yeah.
a lot of areas. A lot of NHL teams, run those things, and so girls are exposed at a younger age. They get the bug. They want to keep going, and
Right.
so at some point in time, there's going to have to be a pinnacle level. There's going to have to be something there for them to get to,
Yeah.
and I think that they'll continue to fight. I think that it's well known enough in the world that
Yeah.
that they can play at a competitive level that is exciting and can draw fans.
Yeah.
So
Scotty, one more. Let's touch on one more thing here, and then we'll call it a wrap. What are you
all right,
thinking? I'm looking
yeah,
at,
sounds good.
just for people who might be watching us, all three of our fans out there, you, me, and maybe my wife,
Or
but
someone else who happens to click on the link mistakenly.
accidentally clicks on the link.
Yeah.
The St. Louis Blues are up 2-1 on Edmonton with 7:56 left in the second. So their streak is alive and well. I think. Is there anything you wanted to speak about?
No, I mean we had kind of thrown out the topic of Dustin Byfuglien.
Yeah, I was going to mention it if you didn't mention it.
Yeah.
In reading articles, it's just so freaking strange. What the heck's going on there? I don't know. What do you have any insight you'd like to share?
Sure. And as you know, it's funny when Chicago was the affiliate of Norfolk.
Yeah,
Dustin Byfuglien played here.
yeah,
Huge guy. But I watched him kind of grow into the player he became in Chicago, and then of course, he moved on from Chicago once they won the Cup. But it's interesting. He's always been kind of he does his own thing. But he was counted on for the Jets to really anchor that defensive core. And
right,
for a long time, I was pretty angry at him just as a fan of of hockey, because he didn't let the team know what was going on. And they basically held a roster spot for him. They couldn't make any trades. They couldn't absorb any cap space or any more against the cap because they didn't know what was going on with them. So, it'd be one thing if he said, you know what, I need to take some time off, suspend me
hmm,
administratively so that my salary isn't counting against you, so you can go out and get somebody else. But he didn't even do that. And so the long and short of it is, though, that he was out a couple times last year with ankle problems. Came back right at the end of the season. He didn't do really any kind of training in the summer.
right,
So he really wasn't testing the ankle.
right,
But as soon as he started skating again before camp, that's when he noticed the problem. But he just there was thoughts of, is he going to retire now? What's he thinking? What's going through his head? He
Right.
moved his family,
Right.
so a lot of people are questioning, well, why didn't he show up to the team, say, hey, I've got an ankle problem or a foot problem, and just go on rehab, let the team take care of it.
Well, the team seemed to be protecting the conference. See, this is where I get a little fuzzy with it.
Sure.
Was that it seemed like the team made it. The, the team press releases were, or the team news coming out of the team headquarters was that they were in contact with him, and that it was a private matter and so on. But then everyone's kind of seemed surprised when last week it was released that he had ankle surgery, including the team. So, what was it they thought they were talking to him about prior to, and why do they seem so surprised now?
So he really wasn't talking to the team. So his agent was kind of keeping in touch with the team, but he wasn't really
I
talking
got
with
you.
the team. And he paid for his surgery, so he didn't use the team doctors. He let them know after the fact. But apparently he had a broken foot, a broken bone in his foot that he also had repaired. Um, but he also felt like the Jets should have known he was having problems. Um, that they knew based on the end of the season physical that he was okay. So it shouldn't have been, if he just rested, it would go away. The interesting thing here is, he put off the surgery for such a long time. Now he really can't play. The team has suspended
Right.
him.
Right.
Was this a hockey injury? So he played at the end of the season. He didn't skate all summer. Then all of a sudden he started to skate. He hasn't played yet. So can they chalk it up to a hockey injury? And so there's a discussion about whether or not the team is going to have to pay him,
Mm-hmm.
or whether it's going to have to go to arbitration.
Right.
What's going to go on with that. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I don't think the Jets are going to go to arbitration. I think that the team's going to end up paying because they need him. But there's also the question of, did he burn bridges with the team?
Right.
Are they going to want him back after
Right.
this is what he did?
Exactly.
So
Very odd. The whole thing's
yeah.
odd. Then again,
Yep.
he's odd. He's an odd guy. He's an odd player. He's odd person. I've never really viewed him as being all there. Like there's something off, and I think it's reflected in his play.
Well, he had some problems with he had some legal issues, something about drinking and boating a couple years ago. I mean, he was still a young guy.
Yeah.
Every opportunity I got to talk with him, he was professional. I mean, he was
Right.
a hockey player. Nothing crazy, nothing out of the ordinary. So,
Right.
but I mean, some guys go their own way,
Yeah.
do their own thing, and
He exudes that though. You listen to him, you see him play, you just see the way he carries himself. I don't have anything against the guy, but I guess it's the image, the feel he gives off. He just seems to want to be an independent guy, and he doesn't really. He has that. He gives off that sort of that aura that he really doesn't care what anyone else thinks or does, or he's just going to do what he wants to do.
yeah. Well, and then the other thing too, it's a business, and
Mm-hmm.
so the NHL Players Association is going to go to bat for him. They're going to
Yeah.
say that the Jets owe him all the money that he's due. The team may or may not argue that. If the team doesn't want him back, they're going to do what they can to save cap space, and so they may bring him back just because it's more cost effective to pay him not to play than
Yeah.
to buy him out.
Yeah.
Or try and trade him, once he's healthy. So it's just an interesting situation. We'll have to see how it plays out. But certainly the Jets miss him. He was supposed to be back there. He was supposed to be the anchor. He was a big voice in the locker room, a big leader on the ice, picked up a lot of ice time.
Yeah, he did.
So they're certainly missing him. And I don't know. if they're going to be able to recover this season with having him there. I mean, their defensive core is I wouldn't even call it an AHL defensive core,
Right.
and you can't generate offense without good defense. So
That's true.
yeah. So, but that's
All right,
about it.
sir. I know it's past your bedtime.
Yeah, definitely. So.
Good chats. 3-1 St. Louis in the second, 4:40 left in the period. Rangers up 3-1 in the third, 17:24 left in the game.
You want
Tomorrow night.
to take a guess on who the lone Edmonton goal is from? I said guess, not look.
Oh, you want me to guess?
Yeah. Easy answer, man.
Well, okay, McDavid.
Yep, that's it. Lone goal of Connor McDavid.
Well, it's either McDavid or Draisaitl. I mean, Draisaitl's been having a good season, so it's one or the other. But tomorrow, as we look ahead a little bit, I know you and I are going to be at odds tomorrow night. Islanders and the Penguins.
Indeed.
Vegas and Toronto. Who you taking on that? Quick, Toronto, Vegas. Go.
Vegas.
Huh?
Vegas.
Yeah, I'm taking Vegas. Washington, Florida.
Washington.
You know, Washington hasn't lost many games. They look really freaking strong, but I don't know. Florida's they're sneaky. I don't know, but Washington's just flat out strong. It's one of those games where, because the Islanders are right behind Washington, I'm gonna be rooting for Florida, but I think Washington might pull it out. So, Pittsburgh Islanders. Who are you taking?
Pittsburgh.
I'll take the Islanders on that. We all know who's going to win that one. Montreal and Philly.
Montreal. Philly they're just not good anymore. They're not scary. They're not anything.
You know, and it's sad to see like a Voracek or a Giroux, and they just look comfortable in the same old thing. It's almost like they don't have a fire. I mean, they're great players, but I would love to see them have a fire, to have a shot. It's almost like they don't know anything else than what they've been doing for so long. It's a shame. Rangers, Carolina.
Carolina?
Yep, Carolina. Kings, Ottawa.
That's like choosing bad or worse. I think the Kings are gonna take that game.
Yeah, I'll go with the Kings. Canucks and Blackhawks.
I think the Blackhawks are gonna pull that one out.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
I'll go Vancouver on that one.
Yeah, I think they're due for a win.
Nashville, Colorado.
That one's tough. Two good teams. Yep. I think the edge goes to Colorado, but we'll see what happens.
I'll go Nashville on that.
Colorado, yeah.
Devils, Calgary.
Calgary.
I'll go Calgary on that. Yeah.
Yep.
Blue Jackets and Coyotes.
Coyotes. Not getting a lot of they're getting a lot of scoring by committee. Phil Kessel has not really lit the lamp like they've wanted him to, but they've played good, solid hockey. It's been consistent. They're getting good goaltending. So
right, I'll agree with you on that one. Sharks and the Wild.
Man, that's another one that sucks. I think I think San Jose will pull that one out.
I'm going to flip a coin on that one.
Yeah.
I'm either one.
I'm calling San Jose on that one.
50-50 on that one. But that's a lot of games for tomorrow night. So a lot will be going on, a lot to watch. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, all right, man. Good chat.
Yeah.
Thanks to all the viewers. And we'll see everyone again real soon. Maybe we'll catch up over the weekend here.
Certainly, and if there was anybody that accidentally clicked and then stayed on for the whole thing, if there's any down in the comments there, if there's anybody that or any topics you think we should talk about, anything format wise, certainly definitely open to it. Hopefully, we didn't drag on the topics a little bit too long. So I think this was good. I think we're only going to get better.
Yeah, I think as everyone knows, these are recorded broadcasts, and I think our next step is to make sure that these are live, whether it's through Periscope or YouTube Live. We have the ability. It's just a matter of clicking on that button and putting it live. So we'll see that in the near future. All right.
All right.
Have a good night, and we're out.